Hello and welcome to the Strategic Bookkeeper podcast. In today's episode, I'd like to share with you a topic that I was recently speaking on for the Institute of Professional Accountants, which was my privilege. So this topic is called the big shift in consumer behaviour post-pandemic. It can also be called how to stay competitive in a post-pandemic world. Now, recently when I was speaking on this topic, the night before I was speaking, and an accountant asked me what I was speaking on, and I told him, and he said, "Oh, I'm not very competitive." And that struck me. And before we dive into the podcast, I want to say something about that. So whether you are booked solid with clients, or whether you have more time on your hands than clients and you really need to attract new clients, being and remaining competitive is key to continuing to thrive in your business. In fact, the clients that you currently have are staying with you because of your selling points and your competitive advantage. Even if that is that you are a great bookkeeper who meets your time and tasks. So that is you meet your deadlines and do everything you said you'd do. Believe it or not, that is called the marketing X factor, in my opinion, and there are a lot of bookkeepers who struggle to do what they said they'd do in the time frame they said they'd do it. And so if I dived into that with you in your business, I might tell you that's a really lovely part of your competitive advantage. The point being, please don't tell me you don't need to be competitive. You absolutely do need to be and remain competitive in the eyes of your clients to continue to retain your clients, let alone how to find new clients, how to attract new clients. So I'm rattling on. I'd really love to share this topic with you today. Education is key to thriving in business as well. And so please let me begin this journey with you on how to stay competitive post-pandemic and the big shift in consumer behaviour post-pandemic. I'm Jeannie Savage, the Strategic Bookkeeper. I'm an award-winning entrepreneur, author, speaker, trainer and coach. After 13 years in practice and after scaling into a lifestyle business where I could choose my own adventure, I'm sharing my secrets to success, my secret sauce recipe on how to build a thriving practice, delight your clients and ultimately live your dream on your terms. This podcast is a companion to my book. In each weekly episode, I'll share strategies for scaling and success. This is your time to shine, to step up, to become a strategic bookkeeper and enjoy all the benefits it brings to you and your clients. Okay, so let's dive into today's topic. Podcast interruption. Just to let you know, if you did not join the program when the doors opened on August 1, and they opened for 14 days before my team and I rocked up live, it doesn't mean that you can't join in. The program is evergreen. Okay, so we have a way to bring you into the program seamlessly, beautifully, so that you can absolutely start working with me to build your thriving practice, delight your clients, and live your dream on your terms. If you are keen to know how that works, just drop us an email or ask in the private Facebook group. I'm always really grateful for that because then I can help the many as well as the one. Or simply use the link that will drop in the show notes or go to the website, pretty easy, and jump into the program because two things. Number one, it comes with a money back guarantee, or let's say three things. Number two, I do not get you to spend extra time working with me. This is about on the job. Yes, I've done other podcasts on that. And number three, that money back guarantee, it kicks in after a year, but my expectation is to help you get the ROI really early, so that pays for the program. But yes, we're going to spend a year together. So back to the podcast. So the big shift in consumer behaviour post-pandemic as it relates to our accounting industry. And as this topic relates to helping you to thrive in your practice, to delight your clients and to live your dream on your terms, which is the income and lifestyle that you want and deserve. Because that's all what it's really about. So, as always, I'm a mix of structured agenda and relaxed sharing, and so I will be referring to my little notes here as we chat. So, the big shift. Let's have a look at what it is and why you need to adapt, or why I recommend you adapt, and then how you can adapt. Because something that I want to let you know about the big shift in consumer behaviour is it's something that I've been observing for a little while now, since the pandemic started over 3 years ago. And then I caught up with a business buddy who is just amazing in the marketing space, and he really walked me through a lot of this and really filled in a lot of the gaps, which was amazing. But let me tell you right now, I am personally still adapting. This is new stuff. Not many people are talking about it, and I am definitely myself still adapting. So let's have a look at that now. So I want to start by talking about what was happening before the big shift, because I think that will really help you understand it, and then after the big shift. So before the big shift in consumer behaviour, because that's all this is, it's a shift in consumer behaviour, which you'll begin to understand more of in a minute. So before the big shift, let's talk about the trends and the behaviour of our consumers in the accounting industry. So before the pandemic, this was the typical customer journey, okay? So in terms of your market, someone within your market or someone that you could serve, a business owner, became aware of a problem that you could solve for them. And then somehow they found out about you. So let's say their accountant told them about you. That's one way they could have found out about you. Or let's say they met you at a networking event. Or let's say they even happened to Google Bookkeeper, Parramatta, and you came up there and they decided to give you a call. Okay, so the customer journey was that they had a problem, they realized that they need someone in the bookkeeping space to solve, and they reached out either by giving you a call, so phoning you, or they sometimes sent you an email form if they found you online, okay? And that meant that you were able to then have a conversation. So the other thing I want to mention in this, before the pandemic, local was quite meaningful. Local had a lot of value. So business owners on the whole wanted to work with a bookkeeper who was local, even if they never met them, even if they only ever interacted over the phone and everything was done remotely. They just liked the idea that that person was just down the road, just in case they needed to see them face to face. So local had a lot of value. Okay. Now, I want to talk, before the big shift, power and influence. So because this person in your market would give you a call or send you a form, which means you gave them a call, then you had a lot of power and influence, because during this initial discussion, this was a dialogue where you could realistically do what I would call a needs analysis, right? So you're on the phone discussing what they need and you're analysing what they need, and you're able to have a conversation which influences that person around using you or not using you, because you're assessing each other, okay? So what we just discussed there was like trends and behaviour and customer journey and local having value and power and influence, okay? So that was before the pandemic. Hopefully that's given you an idea of the customer journey before the pandemic, okay? Now, once the pandemic hit, everything really started to change very rapidly. So in fact, trends, so we just talked about trends that were changing very, very, very slowly in the accounting industry changed fast, okay? There were trends that were happening in other industries fast. They were changing faster. They were really slowing now. So I'll give you an example. So one of the trends that was accelerated was this idea or this habit and this behaviour that I want to do everything online. I want to find out everything I need to know online. I want to get all my questions answered online, and actually I want to be able to take action easily online, and probably my attention span for all of this is not huge. So this was something that was slowly but surely happening. In the accounting industry, it was definitely something that was really slower than in other industries. So an example of an industry where it was gaining traction would be, say, like the personal services industry, like think about massage, for example. So people were really starting to get used to finding what they wanted online and then actually booking in, and they never interacted with the massage therapist until the day that they turned up at their appointment. So this was happening in various industries, a lot more than it was happening in the accounting industry. Okay, so in the accounting industry, for me as a bookkeeper, for you as a bookkeeper or an accountant, it was much more manual, I'd like to say. So there was much more dialogue, whereas in other industries, like think of restaurants, people were getting really used to the convenience of simply going online, finding out everything they need to know, booking in and turning up in a really hands-free way, okay? So that was much slower in our industry. So the other thing that has changed post-pandemic, and I definitely saw it, is local began to lose value, yeah? And that is because everybody was forced online. Everybody was forced to adapt, you know, to buy groceries online, to do things that some of us were just choosing not to do. Okay, so suddenly I was hearing from clients very far away. So our practice is on the Gold Coast, right? We were getting phone calls from Tasmania, and people were much more likely to use us irrespective of where we were located. But that meant that the power around local began to lose value. Okay, some of these changes I really was happy to see, because we were very much operating, you know, ready to do national work. But what I noticed before the pandemic is that people wanted you to be down the road, yeah? But once the pandemic hit and post-pandemic, that has changed. Local definitely began to lose value. So the other thing that I've touched on that changed is that our market began to want to get to know everything they needed to know about us 24/7 online in their own time. And that was not happening in the accounting industry prior to the pandemic. In our industry, that was not the expectation of our market. Their expectation was to be able to get some information online. But part of the customer journey post-pandemic that is very different now is that if you were referred to someone before the pandemic, rather pre the pandemic, that person would often call you immediately. Yeah, so they got a referral, that was third-party endorsement to them, I'll give them a call, and they were likely to use you. Now that customer journey has changed, because without that person realizing it, their behavior on the whole has changed. So now when they are referred to you, they Google you, and they spend time floating in your digital ecosystem, what I call your brand sphere, and they want to get to know, like, and trust you online and get more third-party endorsement, etc., before they reach out often. And actually, I can give you an example of that. So I know someone that was referred to an accountant with a really good recommendation, right? This person went online and sat in their brand sphere and didn't like what they saw. Yeah, so regardless of the referral, they did not use the services of that accountant. Everything has changed, okay? And then, so the last thing I want to mention there, so post-pandemic, after the pandemic, power and influence. Wow, the big shift in that, yeah? So you've lost power and influence because if we think of that story that I just shared with you, prior to the pandemic, our behaviour was, I'm referred, I'll call that bookkeeper or accountant, yeah? Now I'm referred, so I'll go online and I'll check that they're credible. I'll check that they look like someone they're trustworthy, so there's credibility. know, like, and trust. Yeah, so they're going online and they are seeking to get their questions answered online. And if they can't, then they may move on. So the power to have a conversation around the needs analysis and influence them through question and answer, which is just a natural part of what we do. Yeah, it's not salesy. It's a natural part of what we do. That power and influence has dramatically changed. Now, I guess just a couple of food for thought items. So just on, I call this the if you're not convinced. It's a big subject, yeah, but I really hope that listening to all this, you can reflect on your own behaviour as a consumer. When do you look for things that you want and need in the business or personal space? Because a lot of us, it's 9 o'clock at night on our phone these days, and it might be something to process, but prior to the pandemic, our behaviour was different. As I say, certain industries like shoe shopping, fashion shopping, there was a lot of adaptation of this kind of behaviour that we went online. But in the accounting industry, it was not, it wasn't commonplace to do all of our question and answer for a bookkeeper or an accountant at 9 o'clock at night on our phone in bed, and that is more commonplace now, okay? So in terms of why we should adapt, well, what got you here may not get you there. So I get that this requires a change, yeah? And you might be thinking, do I really, really need to adapt? Okay, well, in business, just like in nature, I would say definitely adapt or die, okay? The Kodak story is the quintessential adapt or die story. And in a nutshell, in case you haven't heard the Kodak story, feel free to Google that one because you'll get it pretty well summarized online. So the Kodak story, so even though a Kodak engineer was the first person to design a digital camera, Kodak did not want to adapt when the digital camera era began to come in, right? So they buried their head in the sand. They said, no, we own the camera space and we're going to stick to analog and we're not going to adapt. Until some years later, it became apparent that if they didn't adapt, they were going to die, and they adapted too late. And so they did file for bankruptcy. Now, there are lots of business stories like Kodak around, like Border Books. They were around for 100 years. They refused to adapt to using a database, and I talk about databases a bit in the Strategic Bookkeeper. They closed their doors, and I think that's sad that a wonderful, iconic business closed their doors because they refused to adapt. So let me tell you right now, in business as in nature, adapt or die. So now more than ever, your market does expect to be able to get to know you 24/7 online. I know I'm rinsing and repeating here, right? So they expect to be able to immerse themselves in your brand 24/7 online. And I promise that I'll give you the how in a second, okay? And we can go on this journey together, yeah? So I am absolutely adapting with you. My website for my bookkeeping practice, I redeveloped a few years ago. It needs updating because consumer behavior has changed, okay? So in my program, I will be helping the participants of the program as much as they want and need around how to renovate or build your website in line with the current economic, tech and business landscape, okay? So your market expects to be able to get all their questions answered online in watch, read, do, listen formats, and with third-party endorsement as well, which is not as mysterious as it sounds. If I say to someone, Joe's a great bookkeeper, that's a third-party endorsement, okay? But we can kind of look at, for example, Google reviews and awards are great third-party endorsements, as are any software company endorsements and that kind of thing, okay, just to give you an idea. So let's talk about how to adapt now. The first things I want to encourage you to do is to play the long game. Yeah, so like I say, you don't need to do all of this overnight. This is new stuff, and if you begin adapting now, you're an early adapter, and you won't have your own Kodak moment, okay? So play the long game. Go on a lap around the sun, slowly but surely adapting. You can absolutely look at joining my program, and I'll help you with all that. next thing, like Nike says, just do it. That is progress over perfection. Please don't feel like you have to be perfect first out of the gate with this stuff. Fail in a controlled environment. Practice will make progress. And the third thing is very much we are going to go about the how of this with strategy and planning, right? So let's look at that now. And you've got this podcast to listen to as much as you like. So the key principle around how we're going to do it is this phrase. Your market is still asking the same questions. They're just not asking them directly. Answer them online, yeah? And here's how to get started. So there are 3 big keys to getting started around adapting to this new kind of behaviour in our market. So the big 3 keys are definitely knowing that your market wants to get those questions answered online in a 24/7 way, that they want to float in your brand sphere and self-assess need and desire. Yeah. And the third one is just to embrace the rise of PR and the death of marketing. Nobody wants to be advertised to any more, which is another reason third-party endorsement we've seen such a massive rise in that, right? Because that's more kind of like public relations. Here's what others are saying about me. So the rise of PR and the death of marketing is something that's been happening for a very, very, very long time. That one is not new, but it's very much at play in this business landscape. So in terms of the how, I also want to tell you a fun fact, and that is that our brains don't differentiate between digital and real, and that's why celebrity endorsement works. Okay, so that is exciting because rather than have to do as much one-on-one face-to-face, which still has value and can also be fun and a nice way to get out of the house, you can build, like it is proven that our brains can build know, like and trust with another human digitally online, okay? So there's a power for you in that. And that means there's also a power in personal brand, okay? So it doesn't mean that your business has to be called Jeannie's Bookkeeping Services, but it does mean, for example, that as the principal, people will want to get to know me. They'll want to make sure they vibe with me as the person behind the brand, okay? So there is a power in personal brand. And we'll continue this journey together online and in events and all that kind of thing. So 3 steps to get you started. Content, profile, platforms. Okay, I'll repeat those and then we'll dive into them. Content, profile, platforms. Content is king. Engagement is queen. Answer your market's questions online with your content. Okay, so let's dive into that a little more. I'll give you some examples. And I want you to just think of yourself as a consumer, okay? And then think of the kind of questions that you get asked and the way you could answer those questions. And I'll give you some examples. So product ladder is where your content is held. So content is step 1 in your product ladder. And you can read all about product ladder in my book. Examples of content, everything on your website is content, okay? When somebody can go to a page about one of your services or your productized services, they are immersing themselves in your content and able to, get value by finding out how you might be able to help them. Our most popular website page for my bookkeeping practice is our About Us page. It says, that speaks volumes. And so that is content where people can find out about me and my team and my brand and see if we vibe in order to self-assess, once again, their desire and their need to work with me. So that's an example of content. Social media posts are another example of content. Blogs and videos and a business health check is an example. A how-to guide, so how to deal with the ATO, how to get up to date with your books, which you can do in audio form, video form, or a blog. That is examples of content. Okay, so one question that business owners often ask is, where's all the cash? You can answer that question in a blog. You can turn that blog into a mini book that can be turned into some audio clips and some videos as well. So you can also content repurpose. but you already have a treasure trove of content probably in your business. If you have a website, you already have a great treasure trove of content. So sometimes it's just really about looking at the mountain of value that you're already sitting on and then looking at maybe repurposing some of that, or make it easier, join my program and I do all this for you. I give you, I think, 500 social media templates. So that's a bit of a dive into content. Then engagement being queen, we want to make sure that people are engaging in your content, right? So if you do have a mini ebook on, like I've got one, the 7 Deadly Cash Flow Sins, then are people, how are you sending that to audiences? And that's your platform. So content was number one. So let's look at profile. So profile should be reasonably easy for you. And I go through this in my book. So in the attraction chapter of my book, which has also got a playbook for the attraction chapter. So literally, here's how to do it. Let's do it together. So with profile, I want to kind of explain something to help you understand the value of profile and the power of profile. So let's say you go into a bookshop and you head to the recipe section. There you see lots of books, some authors you've never heard of, and some by chefs that you know and love. Yeah, so think 𝒑𝒐𝒏𝒅𝒆𝒎𝒊𝒄. Yeah, I think Dr. Michael Mosley. I love his recipes too. Yeah. So which books will grab your attention? Yeah. So which will build value in your mind immediately? Will it be the ones from authors that you've never heard of, or will it be the ones from chefs that have a profile? Yeah. So you have a profile and you absolutely need to make sure that that's in your content and that it's displayed prominently. Okay. So in my book, I talk about the various parts of your profile that are probably fairly obvious. So your skills, your experience, your licenses, even insurance and registrations, affiliations with different professional associations and software houses, different badges you might have. Then you can add on to that. So you've already got a profile, so make sure that that is nicely summarized and can be displayed in your content. And then look at, how could you maybe level up? Like if you think, well, I've already done that, it's really well displayed, how can you level up from that? I definitely recommend looking at entering some awards and looking at winning awards and getting also finalist positions. So with either of those, you'll get a media pack that you can display as content, and that is a third-party endorsement, which is very, very powerful. Now let's move on to platforms. Stick with me. I promise I'm not too far off done. The best description I ever heard of a platform, because a platform is like social media, etc., is someone said it's like an actual platform. So imagine that I have stepped up onto a platform and I've said, hey, attention bookkeepers, do you need to find new clients or something? And if you're a bookkeeper that did, you might turn around and say, oh, well, that's me. I'm on a platform and I'm grabbing your attention, right? So I want you to think of these digital platforms like social media as an actual platform, okay? So it is a place that you go and you put your content on the platform in order to help people to get to know, like, and trust you, and in order to convey how you can help to solve their problems, okay? So examples of platforms. So social media is one, but it's actually the one I like the least. I don't want to be a slave to social media. So examples of other platforms. All right, so events. Events are a great platform, and that leads me to partners are a great platform. So strategic partnerships, and I go through them in my book, they are a platform from which you can do all of these things, right? You can serve up valuable content and speak to your market. Now, you can combine running an event with a strategic partnership and you've got a really powerful platform there, yeah? So if you're speaking at an event that you run online, you're on a digital platform. So I love those two. Email is a platform, yeah? Text message is a platform. I love all of those platforms, all right? More than I like social media, but social media is a part of marketing layering. So it is important that we do it. It's important that we show up consistently so people can build know, like, and trust credibility. Okay? So that is the platforms that I wanted to talk about. Okay, so let's wrap this podcast up by simplifying how you're going to go about adapting, but also why and a few other things. So first of all, you've listened to the podcast right through, and well done. Okay, so successful entrepreneurs do the things that others won't and put in the hard work that others don't. Yeah, so be the 20%. It is so important to continually educate yourself. Yeah, so that you know what you need to know in order to take the right action. So well done. So number 2, you can listen to this podcast as often as you want to, all right? And this is about taking a step, not a giant leap and getting it all done in 2 seconds. When you listen to this, then what you can do is you can observe your own behavior as a consumer. So what I would love for you to do is begin to look at various brands that you interact with, just things that you love, that you shop at, and just start to notice what they do well, what they don't do so well, and start to think about how they act in terms of everything you're learning from me, because that will really, really help you, okay? And just take a step in that direction. Like, have a look at your website. Have a look at the content that you've currently got. Begin to value what you've got. Yeah, and just take small steps. All right, so that's definitely what I'd say in terms of helping you take action. I would encourage you to look at Strategic Bookkeeper Transformation Program, because I know that's going to help you step by step. And it would absolutely be my privilege to help you to thrive in practice by becoming a strategic bookkeeper through the program. So I hope you found this episode helpful. I'd love to hear what you think. If you're in the Strategic Bookkeepers Way Facebook group, please feel free to comment in there on any of the podcasts that you listen to.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have a question you'd like answered on my podcast, please email me, hello@thestrategicbookkeeper.global. Did you know we have a private Facebook group called the Strategic Bookkeepers Way? There you'll find bookkeepers just like you on the same journey where you can ask questions and get support. You can find more resources and how to work with me at thestrategicbookkeeper.global. All the links are in the show notes. Have a prosperous week, and I'll see you in the next episode.